but until I was about 30 is where I actually kind of started going through therapy and learning like, wow, like I did all that acting out because of this, and it was my way to get out so I wasn't alone with this person. So I was alone with this person, and I didn't want to be alone with this person. So I started, instead of telling anybody what was happening, I reached out a different way. And
very excited to have you on, Matt. I have my little cheat sheet here. I don't know if you remember me saying this to you, probably maybe last year or the year before. I started bowling in 2012, I think. I've always had been bowling like with the family. My family growing up, I mean, who in the 70s, 80s, 90s, everybody was bowling, smoking cigarettes in the bowling alley, things like that, you know. And they would always bring us, and I always thought it was cool. And then I got into my senior year of high school. Me and my mom joined. I don't know why we joined this league, but I didn't know anything about bowling. But they did. Remember they used to do over in Groton the sports shot league. So they did a sports shot. Me and my mom did it, and they gave a free ball at the end of it, and that kind of like pushed me. But then I played baseball and would always go bowling with like a plastic, ball and try to hook it. Nothing serious, but I got really competitive after I graduated and couldn't play baseball anymore. I'm like, man, baseball was my identity. I gotta keep that level of competition up. So I joined and did a league in 2012. My first league ever, I shot a 300, 143 and like 112 or something like that. And then game 3 was 300. And I used to throw the ball like Steve Brower. Like I used to literally launch the ball halfway down the lane and, surprise, surprise, 300. But then I got into Friday nights, and that's where I saw you bowl. And we hadn't known each other. I don't think we like really got friendly until you joined Monday nights. Probably I've been bowling Monday nights now for 6-7 years. So I'd say around probably 4 or 5 years ago, maybe.
Right after COVID was when I started bowling again. So I actually took off from 2012 to about when COVID started. And then right after COVID started opening back everything up, I started bowling again. Makes
sense. So, but when I saw you Friday nights, you had this real fluid, natural form. And I'm like, man, that's the guy I want to really emulate. I want to try to, bowl as consistent as him. You're just so fluid and natural. Your timing was perfect. The way you set the ball down, your consistency. And by the way, for anyone listening, bowling is not an exciting thing to talk about. So this is going to be a fun conversation to kind of navigate, because we're going to talk about a bunch of different things. We're going to make it exciting. Yeah. We're going to unpack a bunch of. It's not going to just be about bowling. But you were the guy. I was like, there's a ton of other bowlers, but the physique, everything just kind of, it felt similar. So I went and downloaded or bought the Norm Duke step-by-step DVD, and I kind of just put the two together, and that's how I became, I would say, a decent bowler, okay bowler. But so today I sit down with professional bowler, performer, and proud family man Matthew Brockett. From track meets and musical stages to national bowling lanes, Matthew's life has been anything but typical. He's a founder of R&B Bowling, a dad of 2, soon to be 3, and someone who wears vulnerability as strength. In this episode, we'll talk about his path through sports, trauma, and community, and what it means to choose your family. Matt, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate the 10-minute monologue before we got going here. But, like I said, the idea of bowling, I think, isn't as exciting as what most people would think. Talk to me about where bowling entered your life, because again, this is the first time we probably get to sit down at this capacity. The one thing I love about my show is I can sit down with people at a 45-minute, 60-minute clip, sometimes a little bit more, and people that I've known my entire life, or people that I've known over the last decade, and you get to know them. Where did bowling enter your life?
So I would say I would have to be around 10, 11, 12 years old. I think it was closer to the 11 age. I had a family friend who was around a lot, and it got to a point in my life where I just started asking him, I'm like, yo, you want to go to the bowling center? Can we do this and that thing? So, he brought me to the bowling center first ever time, probably around 11 or 12 years old, and started as a Friday night thing. Then Friday turned into Friday, Saturday. Friday turned into Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Then it eventually just started turning into 7 days a week by the time I was 13, 14 years old. Joined my first league, I think I was 13.
Is that like juniors?
Yep. Juniors. I was Old Saybrook AMF Lanes when that was still open. So there's a little bit of a darker side to that story on why I got started. And I'm willing to share that story with everybody at home. So just a little background. So the family friend eventually wasn't the
Family friend.
I see. So took advantage of my childhood, unfortunately. Bowling was my way out. There was times that I was alone with this person, and I didn't want to be alone with this person. So I started, instead of telling anybody what was happening, I reached out a different way, and sports was always in my DNA, soccer, basketball, and then when I got to high school, track. So just kind of clung to bowling. That first time we went out Friday night, same concept, seeing other leagues, and I had friends that were in junior leagues too. So I'm like, I think we bumped into a friend that Friday night too that I actually went to school with, and he was bowling. I'm watching him hook the ball and all this. So I'm like, all right. So same thing. Took a house ball. I actually want to say I was two-handed before Belmo.
Oh, okay.
That's how I took the house ball, and I was, using two hands. I was actually scared to put my thumb in the ball. I thought it was going to get stuck. So it just kind of started that way. Kind of clung to my friends a little bit. And they kind of, sucked me into the sport even more. Watching them, succeed and shoot like 180 games at the age of 12 and 13. Brandon Robertson was a big influence. Adam Carner was a big influence. Some of my friends there. So, I ended up just joining a league there, and it was my way to get out. So I wasn't alone with this person. So
that's deep, man.
So I used it as a savior, really. And I didn't know until, after I took all that time off that I had mentioned, from 2012 to about 2020, that was kind of my outbursts in life. I hung out with the wrong people, things like that. So that was kind of like my demons kind of catching up to me a little bit, and I just kind of went off the rails for a little while. But until I was about 30 is where I actually kind of started going through therapy and learning like, wow, like I did all that acting out because of this, right. And I had somebody go, actually it was my therapist at the time. She goes, well, if bowling involves such a dark moment, why do you do it? And I said, because it was the only thing that kept me out of trouble. Wow. It was the only thing that kept me out of danger, so I really clung to bowling as a kid, and then realized that as I got older and went through all that trouble from 2012 to 2020 was I needed that savior again. I needed to really get back involved in the sport and get away from this atmosphere, because I was doing it to myself at that point. It wasn't my past anymore. It was more of just like leading into it. So so that's it. Took that huge break, came back, and just kind of dove right into it.
You didn't miss a beat. you picked up where you left off.
Well, it took me a little while.
I had a little while was like 220 plus probably, and then I remember seeing you back, and it was it's nice to see familiar faces, especially that I think we're probably about the same age. I'm 35. You're what, 37?
I'll be 37 June 4th.
Yeah. All right. So it's nice to see familiar faces that because with bowling, it's very forgive me again. I attach competition to my identity, who I am at work. Here I am with the podcast. I want to put out every episode weekly. You can be episode 70. Play video games. I'm just competition is my identity. And there was also a period that I stopped competing, and you lose that element of yourself. But you don't go through that emotion in real time. You mentioned therapy. Having gone through that, what emotions are coming out of you and realizing who you were and who you were becoming throughout that process?
For sure. I mean, you really definitely learn a lot about yourself, and I actually started going to school for psychology.
Nice.
So I have about 1 or 2 semesters to finish.
Sweet.
Once we found out we were pregnant, I put that on the back burner just a little bit, and just kind of went right deep into bowling, because I was already involved with it anyway. So my buddy Kendall and I creating the R&B business and trying to really, grow that. So, but therapy definitely helped you. Exactly what you said. You learn a lot about yourself, especially if you take it seriously. And for the people at home, like I share this story because if it's happened to you, like you're not alone. And I like to be vocal about that. Yeah. And it's tough to talk about and it makes people uncomfortable, but the uncomfortable sometimes needs to be talked about,
for sure.
That's kind of like our pre-talk about like politics and stuff. Sometimes you just have to talk about it. And if you could talk about it with, a sane sense of perspective, then we can grow as a community with it, and that's what it is with, childhood trauma. Everyone goes through it in their own way. Somebody had something happen in their childhood, whether it be my situation with, sexual molestation, let's say how it is, you know what I mean? Like, and with that type of moment, or, maybe a kid was just, maybe a father was just too hard on their kid every once in a while, or maybe they had abusive parents, or maybe they had this or that, the other thing. And you don't move forward from generational trauma if you don't talk about it.
Yeah,
so, and that's every subject, it's if you don't talk about the generational, where did we come from, and actually kind of going back on the politics, that's kind of where I don't agree. I don't think we should be deleting our history. I don't think we should be getting rid of it. I think we should learn about it and move forward. Right. Like, not to really get off topic from the bowling, but I mean, it's like, we'll go, I guess, more
open
towards
exchange.
See?
Open exchange.
So, I mean, it's kind of like your skin color is different than mine, but that doesn't mean that our hearts beat different. Right. You just said you're competitive, so am I.
Yeah.
I mean, why does that change? Like, and Kendall, same thing, like, come from different backgrounds, but we're brothers, and that's final. Right. You choose your family, through life. And I'm a firm believer in that. You choose who you want involved. And that's it. I mean, you just got to talk about the hard things sometimes and to be able to move on.
So I have never said this on my show, and I won't go too deep into it, but I also too experienced that. There's a handful of people in my life that know this, maybe 5. And at the time, not, it was a one-time thing for me from what I can remember. But at the time, from the ages of when it happened to the age of like 17, I unpacked it and I told my mother what had happened. And she was like, what? Like, and I'm like, listen. And interesting enough, really, really interesting. And I don't know where you stand on faith, but my faith has allowed me to at least forgive the person, so I'm not carrying that weight. And that happened very early in my life. That happened at like 17, 18 years old, where I was able to forgive the individual, not directly, because the individual still doesn't know that this has never been brought up to the individual. Quite frankly, I don't know if they would probably never listen to this episode, but it happened. And you go through life and you look back. It's very easy. The one thing I love about life, and I genuinely love life and appreciate life, no matter how old we get. Each year and each decade and every 5 years, however you want to put it, it's a great opportunity to reflect on who you were and who you're becoming. And even though I have dealt with that, I'm able to unpack other things in my life. And again, I won't go too specific, but I'm able to be like, I can pinpoint X to that time and how I handle things. Now, again, this wasn't a repeat thing that happened. It was a one-time thing. But having grown up and understanding what actually happened, I was like, man, this is, I was molested. Like, what the hell? I was molested. And I'm like, how? But thankfully, having the ability to forgive internally and knowing that what forgiveness is, there's other things that have happened in my life that, not to that capacity, but there was something that happened very unfortunately with someone close in my life where I had to completely cut them off. But to this day, if I saw them walking, I would embrace them. I wouldn't have a relationship with them, but I would embrace them because I do have this forgiving nature. I can't hold a grudge. And to your point, like, you have to choose that for yourself, right? You can't go through life having this weight and this victim mentality, because that's what creates. That's what it'll create.
And that's exactly what it was that that moment from 2012 to 2020 was exactly, that was like my victim status. Like that, I just kind of, like I said, went off. I did the wrong choices and then exactly talked it through, knew something was happening. It was actually my kids that really kind of was an eye opener, what I went through. And now I have full sole custody of them. So I really just changed because of that. I looked at them and I'm like, well, I don't want to get them into the same situation, or they shouldn't be dealing with my trauma. That's not fair to them. They're innocent, you know? So I really had to make some changes. There was friends I lost because of actions I was doing or the way I would speak to people or things like that. It was just like, it was a lot of things. It was eye openers and you had to do something about it. And I turned 30 and then that was it. It was 2020 and then I just eye opener. Yeah. And just had to make some changes for myself, my family. Yeah. You can't make it for your family until you do it for yourself too. And if you're not willing to do that, then there's no moving on from it. And you become a survivor in that moment.
The best thing about it though, like 35, while I internally don't feel old, we're getting older, right? Physically we feel older. You're going through a little bit of an injury. I have this wrist injury. My back is hurting. Like, you know what I mean? We're getting older. And that's just the nature of life. But I said this to a couple of people on my show. The beauty about it is, like, I look at life in different seasons. 0 to 10, that's a season, right? 10 to 20, that's a season. 20 to 30, that's a season. You know what I mean? We have the rest of our life to look forward. And my mother-in-law actually, ironically, sent me something yesterday that life has these 3 phases from ages, 0 to 1 or 0 to whatever. I think it was like 0 to like 15 or 16 you're learning. 16 to 25 is like you're trying to figure out the world. And then from ages 24 to 65 is where you really have to start figuring out growth, spirituality, all that stuff, finances, all that stuff. And if you don't have all that in order by the time you're 65, you're kind of screwed. You know what I mean? But what that tells me is that at any point you can change your life. And at any point the stars can align if you make the right corrections. But like you said, you have to want to do that. Right. You know what I mean?
You got to make the changes yourself for sure.
So you have, how old are your children right now?
8 and 7.
You have 8 and 7. So this is like pretty, you're going through all of this stuff while having children, right? Or while you had already had children.
Correct. I was dealing with my own traumas as my kids were getting older. Yes, correct.
Walk me through, just if you can, just walk me through like the emotional state of that, having children. Because I think, when I think about, I was having this conversation with my buddies the other day. They're going to come out next week. Is we have this, we put this weight on our shoulders of not wanting to fail them, but we don't correct. So the decisions and actions we take might appear as failure. Failure in it really, to me, is a I don't necessarily think failure is a tangible thing. I think the world has told us that we're failing, whereas failing is the opposite of succeeding. So the more failure you have, the better you succeed. It's like, you can think about bowling, for example. We'll just use that for example. You throw the ball, you roll the ball many games, 3 games a night, 5 nights a week, and then eventually you hit that 800 series, 300 game. Is that success? Yeah, I would say so. But then you go next week and the opposite happens. And what do? All right, what was I doing wrong? Was it the ball? Was it my feet? Was it my tempo? You learning about the reactions from the ball and, the environment from the week before. And I kind of think that that's life. I don't think that you fail and it's necessarily a bad thing. Right?
You know what I mean? You gotta learn. You got to learn, but you have to accept the learning experience, I think. And I think that's what differentiates from what can become success and what you accept as failure. So I 100% agree with you. It's like you have to hit those hiccups in order to be able to learn and get over the hump. So I agree with you. I wouldn't really call them failures either. I would just learning experiences and just really moving on from it. Yeah. Now, in the past, say therapy, yes, those were failures and I would let it get me down. For sure. And that's that 8-year period of blaming everybody else for what was wrong and this, and not taking any accountability at all. And not saying what happened to me as a kid was my fault either. Obviously that's not your fault, not my fault, with what happened. to us as children. And I think it starts also too with a supporting cast around you and having the right people. And that's huge. It's just having the right people. Like when I came out, like you said, when I had told my mom and my parents, what had finally happened, it was a tough moment for all of us to really handle, but that my parents were right there by my side, local community, that, the little amount of people, like you said, the little amount of people that knew they were by my side, even though they some people knew this person, unfortunately.
Do you mind me asking how long this go on for?
So it started around like 11, 12, same thing as like the bowling. And then ended right around probably when I got my license. So you could
16. Yeah. So
happened for a while.
4 years.
Trauma bonded, and just never really told anybody.
Wow. So how were you from 16 to 20?
I would,
because you still, you're in school, you're doing, you're partaking in activities that probably keep you distracted from the emotion of what had happened.
Yeah. So I dove into bowling pretty hard. I had a girlfriend at the time, dove into that. School, I was working 50 hours a week. So I really just didn't,
busy.
Yeah. I just didn't let my brain really think about much. But during that time, I was also really bad with money.
Who wasn't?
Well, so I guess that was part of the trauma. It was just, here's a couple bucks, keep your mouth shut.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I just got really bad with money, and it was that. And, obviously there's things that I'm shameful for, but I try not to, again, blame myself for anything in the past that happened. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, as I got older, I was borrowing money from people. I never paid back. I lost a lot of friends, the way I would speak with people. And, and even till this day, at almost 37 years old, I'm still learning those experiences. Like, I might crack a joke that I think is funny, and maybe it's not. And, there's just certain areas that I'm still kind of learning too, and trying to produce myself as a better person every day. And that's all I could do.
And I think though, like, you might uncover more things in life, like in the next 5 to 10 years, that still attached to that. But the best thing about it is that you are aware of it right now. And that's where the growth is, when you are aware of it. You mentioned Coach Chris Monroy.
Yeah. Yep.
What kind of impact did he have in your life?
Oh, huge.
Yeah. Is he a bowling coach?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. He's my bowling coach. He's a lot of people's bowling coach. I mean, he's helped out a lot of people. Chris, at this point in my life, he's more than just a coach. He's a friend. He's family. I mean, that guy, when I came back into bowling, let's just say he's very truthful. He's very honest. I can't be the person I am today without his honesty. That's what I think I love most about him, is that he tells you how it is. He doesn't hold back, and I can't be a better person without knowing those facts. Like, I still even remember the first conversation we had when I came back into bowling. It's like, wait a minute, like we're supposed to be, friends outside of this, and and you haven't talked to me in 8 years, and you're just going to come back and just email me about bowling? Like, what's this? And that's when I first started making that turn of like, wow, like I hurt a lot of people like in this time frame, Monroy's great, man. He's incredible. He's there for you. I could call him right now and he'd answer the phone. So, I mean, that man has done a lot for me. So I met Monroy in, I was 17 years old, so about 20 years ago. I was just making that leap from junior league to adult, but I took the huge leap. Like, I went right to PBA when I was 17.
Oh, so you went right to PBA?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Wow.
So I went out to my first regional that year. I had not met Chris yet, and I went to a tournament in Massachusetts, I believe. And I went minus like 350 for my first ever tournament. It was eye opening, because here I thought I was pretty good at 17.
That's how I felt about my first NEBA event.
It's an eye opener.
It's completely different.
It's a huge eye opener when you're facing competitors like that. And so I had kept trying. I don't know if I went out for another PBA tournament for another year after that. And then started getting involved with NEBA the following year. I think I was 18 at that point, and Monroy had just won his first ever PBA regional title.
Oh, cool.
At bowling center in Waverly, which is actually where a bunch of my family on my mom's side, they had acres and acres of farmland, so I knew the area really well. So I thought it was really cool. I'm like, hey, so I was one of my friends, Chris Wood and Joe Morno, were they worked at AMF Saybrook with me, and they were really, really good friends with Monroy. And he had actually beaten Ryan Schaefer for his title, I think. Monroy, if I'm wrong, I apologize, but I believe that's who he beat. So that's huge, And I'm a young kid being like, well, I see Schaefer on TV all the time. Really, this is awesome. And I asked to be introduced. Joe Morno at the time was helping me with some coaching, but he was running into some things. He didn't have much time, so he had introduced me with Monroy, and that's where it kind of started.
That's sweet. That's a cool story.
So I was starting to actually go with to tournaments with him.
Nice.
I started doing NEBAs, made my first cut after about 7 tournaments. I kept trying, didn't give up, just showed up to every tournament, got my ass kicked. And then finally made my first cut. And sorry to tell this story, Monroy, but my first cut led to me facing him in the first round.
And you beat him?
I went double Brooklyn in the 10th to beat him by 2.
Wow.
Oh yes.
Wow.
He was not happy with me.
That's funny. That's funny.
But even after that, he stood by my side. I disappeared for 8 years. He gives me the hard truth, but then still stayed by my side.
That's a forgiving person.
And
love to hear that.
My God, and I love him for it, for giving me the opportunity to still do what I love doing today, and him to listen and be there for me when I need it. Especially when I need it the most. He puts his own life to the side for a minute to be able to hear you and talk and make sure he's there for you. Let's
talk a little bit of bowling. And again, we don't go too much into it, but I actually really love bowling. When I think about my passion for baseball growing up, I thought I was gonna play pro, but I didn't work hard enough. I've said that like 12 times. I got to remind myself like every episode that I didn't work hard enough. So it's a reminder just to work hard in things that you want to accomplish. But bowling for me was very much that next level. And everybody, you could have done anything else, man. You could have golfed. But for some reason, bowling just felt like what baseball was for me. You had your team. You were competing not only as a team basis, but also on an individual basis, very similar to baseball. As a pitcher, I got to make sure I get the guys out, and my team does the rest. As a hitter, I got to do my job to move the runner on, get on base, things like that. Same thing with bowling. You got to carry your team if you're in the anchor spot. But I had that idea, like, man, could I ever go pro bowling? What is that process like, and what did you learn about yourself during that time of having to go through the work of going to be a professional bowler? Because you currently are also right now a professional bowler, which I love. That's dope, by the way. And you have to take lessons in life. There was one time Tony Simpson almost banned me from the center, and I will tell you one thing: Tony Simpson saved my bowling. Call it a career, because it was, I was very a hothead. If I didn't pick up a spare, if I didn't get,
I've been there.
I would smash the score, the entry thing, the keyboard. I would kick the ball return, punch the wall. And he was like, if you do that again, you're never coming back here again. And Tony Simpson literally saved me from that. And it was that day I was like, what's it worth? Like, why? And I think a lot of it is because we know we are better than what we can produce on any given day against anybody, right? You know who you are as a person to compete. You know who you are as a person to excel and do better. And that from that day, I got significantly better when I was able to detach, like, just frustration. Like, you still get mad when you miss that 10 pin or whatever it is. But from that day, I was able to just be like, all right, let's focus on how to get better. What am I doing wrong? Don't get frustrated. Take this to practice. With you being in PBA, how much different is it from just your recreational bowling And what have you learned about yourself throughout that journey of bowling?
So, I have to openly admit, I am still learning like crazy. I mean, I've definitely, I would like to say I've gained a ton of knowledge from different people over the years. Obviously Monroy being one of them. Rich Reynolds with Bullwinkle's Pro Shop, even the pro shop I'm with now, Callahan's Buddy's Pro Shop with Chris Forey.
Yeah, I get my first bowling balls drilled from him. Like my actual like competitive IQ tour, solid 2 of them.
Yep.
Still have it.
So, I mean, there's a lot of people I've learned stuff over the years. And even till this day, so now even going out to the PBA and bowling against those NEBA guys too. I mean, NEBA has just as strong as competitors as PBA regionals. They're, I don't want to say they're comparable because the atmospheres are definitely different, but the competitiveness is the same. Yeah. And actually sometimes in a way, I don't have a PBA title yet, but I've heard stories that sometimes in a way it's almost harder to win a NEBA title with, single elimination, where PBA sometimes has best 2 out of 3. You have an opportunity to come back, or, depending on the setup is for the tournament. So, I'm definitely learning still every day. Patience definitely is a huge thing, like you had brought up. And, I'll tell a quick story about actually what happened this year. I ended up winning, I'm grateful about this. I ended up winning Bowler of the Year for NEBA last year.
Congratulations, by the way. Yeah.
Thank you. And that was hard. I'm a very emotional guy. So, when I heard that news, I'm like bawling my eyes out.
Long posts on Facebook.
Oh yeah. So, and of course I was very unprofessional during that time, being like, let's effing go. Whatever. You know what I mean?
Emotion comes out.
I got yelled at by a couple fans, but, and they're right. There you go. There's a lesson learned. If you're going to be in a professional world, act professional.
For sure.
So, I'm learning that part too. And yeah, so the patience and everything that I'm getting at. Sorry, I'm kind of bouncing.
No,
I have squirrel brain. So
me too.
So patience, just learning everything. So that story about this year. So you win Bowler of the Year. Now there was a point towards the end of the season where maybe my ego was getting ahead of me. Again, Coach Monroy kind of letting me know, like, hey, like, this is kind of happening. And I didn't realize it until after the last tournament. And I went back and I'm going to do a shout out to Bruce Hall, actually. It was a comment that he had said on the live feed of the final tournament of the year. And I bowled like crap because I had that pressure of, well, I could still lose, but this is where you have to finish. And I bowled like crap the whole tournament. And then it wasn't until like 3 games left where I looked at the scores. I'm like, oh my God, I have it. And then my back 3 games went 250, 240, 240.
Nice. And the pressure came off.
And Bruce even said it on the live feed. He goes, well, I think Matt finally realized he has Bowler of the Year locked up. And that was it. Like when I heard that comment, it was like, bro, why are you putting so much pressure on yourself? You have the knowledge, you have the tools to succeed, but you're putting way too much pressure on yourself. You're not listening to what you've done or learned over this last year. Right. And then I went to the TAT in Vegas in end of January, beginning of February, and it was my last full. And I don't want to say amateur because I somebody else had taught me that too. Like if you're doing this as your sport, regardless if you're at amateur or professional, you're still professional. You're doing this as your job.
I'm not Joe Rogan, but I have a podcast.
Well, there you go. See, so this is your profession right now. So
kind of hobby, but I like it.
So I get out the TAT and I don't know. I was in the darkest of dark. Like I couldn't bowl, I couldn't carry, I didn't know what I was doing wrong. Halfway through the week, I started having like wrist problems, and I'm not going to go too deep because it was a very sentimental moment for me, but I did call Monroy, and I like, as far as I'll go, I was bawling my eyes out and I didn't know what to do. And in the back of my head, I was like screaming like, all right, you were planning on going on tour, maybe not national tour, but starting off with regionals. And like, if you can't succeed here, what's going to happen at the next level? And I just started doubting myself like really bad. And I think it was just all about learning, like, all right, so how are we going to get over this hump? Like, to just not quit and just take it as a learning experience. And then I went to that first regional in March. We found out we were pregnant. So I was like,
another congratulations.
Thank you. So I decided to go the pro route right away. I was actually going to wait one more year because I wanted to try to defend my NEBA Bull of the Year. So I wanted to really go full force into that. But then we found out we were pregnant. So I was like, you know what, maybe this is the best time to do this. So I ended up getting my card, doing regionals, still doing NEBAs too. And that first tournament, I struggled pretty bad. I went minus 90 but I didn't give myself that patience again. Like it was like everything had to happen now. Like what is going on? Like I think I shot like 160 game one, and I'm like, all right, like, and then all of a sudden everything just started. It was game one of 8 games. Like you have plenty of time, and I just didn't give myself that credit. And then I realized the next tournament, we went to Baltimore 2 weeks later, and I had watched Kendall during the first round. And it wasn't until like as I was speaking with him, like helping him through the tournament and going, well, you really need to follow this yourself when it's your turn to come up and bowl. And game one right away, I had a couple of Brooklyn shots in there, but I shot 250. Nice. I took advantage of bad breaks, and let the nerves kind of settle. Went 240 the next game, and then had my first 180 game in game 3. But like when I split, it was like, all right, it's just one frame, like move on to the next. What decisions? I didn't hold on to a bad shot, or I didn't hold on to like, I didn't start overthinking me like, what are you doing wrong? It was more of like, hey, your ball reaction, so let's do a change here. Right. Then boom, move to the next ball. After one split, boom. Yeah. And that's when I realized, I'm like, if you're not getting frustrated about that shot, it means you're thinking, and you can actually see what's next in line. Yeah. And that was key for me. And then Baltimore was great. And then we went to Buffalo the following week. Unfortunately, that's when the elbow went. But even then, like Buffalo, I started off with a 180 game, and then I went 210, 220, 210, 2-0, I think. I might be a little bit wrong in some of those areas, but I never shot below 200 again until my elbow went in game 6. But it was the same thing. It was like, there's no rush. Like if you do the 1 or 2 big games, you're there, just grind out the rest. Right. And if you can accept in the sport of bowling, if you can accept having a grind out game on these difficult oil patterns, then you can start being successful, especially if you're keeping your eyes open. You're watching the guys around you who have succeeded before too, especially the ones that are succeeding in the moments. Like you can learn a lot and take away a lot from the game.
And they also have gone through the same thing that you have. Yeah, and that's the thing.
Everyone's been there.
I love that. I was gonna say, seek failure. You almost want to seek out instead of trying to correct. All right, let me just see what. Not necessarily like what I'm doing wrong, but just kind of go through it and allow it. And I think, honestly, I hate that you're injured. I think injuries are one of the most, I don't want to say depressive, but it gets to you when you're hurt. I've been dealing with a wrist injury for 6 years. I think that's probably one of the main reasons why I struggle bowling. I'm still carrying, anywhere between 199 to like 207. But I think I could be much better. But I've been dealing with this injury, and it gets into your head. And again, I'm not bowling at the capacity that you're bowling at. But I think the best thing that, in my opinion, that you can learn throughout this process is now that you are kind of going through this, and when are you slated to jump back on the lanes, you think?
So I go back to the doctor May 14th.
Yeah, so you're probably
I had
a few
MRI.
months out.
Yeah, so I back on there. I had the MRI done, and this is the first time I'm announcing it. Is the MRI actually did come back clean. Great. So we're good. So no torn ligaments, no tendon damage or anything. So it looks like it's just going to be the nerve that we're dealing with. So it's the ulnar nerve, what like a lot of pitchers have to deal with. Right? Yep. So hopefully at this point, now that the MRI came back, I don't think I need that surgery. Yeah. So we'll just have to see what the doctor says and go from there. Yeah. But definitely still hurts. I can't really lift much. I mean, I can move and wiggle. I have a sling to remind myself that it is hurt. Doctors don't want me to wear the sling, but I still do, to just kind of as a reminder, like, hey, like be a little more careful.
Yeah, I'm curious, just to kind of piggyback off what I was saying. I don't know what your mindset is going into events and tournaments and the mental preparation. I think that I bowled my first national tournament in 2019 in Syracuse, I think it was, or 2018. Whenever it was in Syracuse, I bowled there. And you really, you do all this stuff to ramp you up, your mental, like to go compete. And, you know, there's the 40 game frame, you get to bowl the shot, the kind of similar shot to what you're going to be at nationals.
Yep, they got the Bowler's Journal,
the
BTM
Bowler's Journal, you know, and I feel like forever, for anything that I've done competitively, I over psych myself up instead of just kind of letting myself kind of calm my mind down. Bowling is a game of mechanics and mental and muscle memory, you know, very much that. And I would try to overdo it, but I think for you, during this time, and maybe this is just saying, I hope you have this opportunity to do that. This is just really quiet your mind when it comes to it, because I think when you come back, you're going to be on fire. I really do. Let's bridge over to the R&B bowling business.
Okay.
Let's walk through that because we have a few minutes left here. Talk to me about what's going on with R&B Bowling.
Yeah, so my good friend, like I said before, basically my brother at this point, Kendall Robinson and I have created R&B Bowling.
Is he a singer?
No.
Oh God,
no. So R&B actually stands for our last name.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we were trying to find a good solid name, and we were like, well, what if we just do like K&M? And I'm like, oh, yeah, that actually doesn't sound bad. And then I put our last names together. I'm like, wait a minute, we can be smooth about this. We can go R&B.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuck.
Good ring.
Yeah. So that stuck. Right now it's just more of just us bowling PBA, but we're trying to get more into like apparel and rosin bags and chamois and things like that. So eventually we're hoping to get to that level. We've already started producing sweatshirts. We have
Nice.
our logo now. But we're trying to do everything ourselves and at home. My wife is a big part of this. She loves doing the arts and crafts, so she's helping a lot with us on that side of the business. But it's going to take some time, and you know, since we're doing it ourselves and not going through any third parties, you know, we're learning how to properly do everything and go through the proper channels to do it. So.
What's the hopes of this whole thing? What's your guys' vision?
Honestly, I think it's more about spreading the news about bowling. You know, that you can come from anywhere. You know, Kendall has his story, I have mine. And you can come from anywhere and really succeed, no matter, you know, how dark life may have been. Not saying that, speaking for Kendall, that his life has been dark, but, you know, like, you can come from anywhere and really lead your own life, no matter what's happening in this world, politically or anything. Like, you can still take control of your own life and do it, and succeed. And right now we're starting with our PBA journey. Again, hopefully kind of bring that into more like the apparel and help people out that way.
Are you guys creating content around it?
Yep.
Yeah, cool.
So we have our Facebook page, RB PBA Bowling. So that's our Facebook page. Instagram's the same thing, RB_PBA _bowling. Cool. So people at home can definitely follow.
You on YouTube?
I have a YouTube created, but we haven't done anything with it yet. So so we're going to slowly start building that stuff in. And then lessons. So we're actually ramping up on lessons now. So I'm going to be giving lessons. So anybody, you know, interested in bowling, whether if it's beginner, intermediate, advanced, and maybe even professional, like Kendall and I are here to help. So definitely reach out to us. We can do FaceTime. We can meet in person, however anybody wants to do. Nice. I have, as of right now, I have my bronze level coaching through USBC. Going to be getting my silver and maybe eventually my gold.
Cool.
It's going to take some time.
Process.
Yeah, getting your gold there's only a handful of people in the world that have
what do you need
the
for
gold
that?
level. That's actually a good question. Just gonna have to go through all that.
One day you're just gonna wake up and it's gonna be in the mail.
That's it.
Cool. What did I miss? Anything else you want to touch on?
No, just, you know, people at home, like I said, you know, talking about the trauma and coming in, you know, you could succeed and you can fight out of this darkness. You're not alone. You know, there's a bunch of us here that have climbed out of the shadows and here to help. So it's not just bowling, but, you know, life too. Like, you want to reach out, talk, and you know, I'm here for everybody.
Yeah,
so,
good stuff.
You know, and I'm glad to have the people in my life, you know, my family, my wife, my, you know, she came in at the right time. I've slowly been even getting better now.
Yeah, good.
And she's led that way. So
Awesome.
I love you. I'm glad you've been by my side these last 4 years, 3 years, almost 4 years.
Yeah.
Baby on the way.
That's awesome to hear, man.
Yeah.
There's the one thing I want to ask before we wrap up. You have 2 kids. You're about to have another one on the way. Boy, right?
Boys on the way.
Boys on the way. What is a mantra that you want to pass down to them, or make sure that they live by that principle? I think for me, as a father of 3, actually just had one a month ago. Today, actually, gosh, it's been a month already. I want them to see work ethic. I want them to see drive and passion for everything that they do. I don't know what that mantra that my boss calls them isms, but it is just I want them to see that.
Yep.
Anything that you want to pass down to your kids?
Use your weaknesses as strength. Really, like, take those and don't let them bring you down. If anything, let them be right in front of you and hit them head on.
Awesome. Matt Brockett, congratulations on all your success. Bowler of
man.
the year, baby number 3, going to be here soon?
August
what?
11th.
Nice. I'm August 10th.
Nice.
Yeah,
All
cool.
right.
Awesome. So people can find you. I know you mentioned it just a second ago, but where can people find you again for them?
Yeah. So you could see us at RB PBA Bowling on Facebook. Our Instagram tagline is the same, RB_PBA_bowling. You can inquire to us about pretty much anything. So lessons, apparel, things like that, and we'll get on it and help you guys out.
Awesome. I appreciate your time, man.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.